There are thrills in the illicit. You have goosebumps. You are terrified.
It just descends into absolute mayhem.
And those arms flew off. That was holy shit.
Jordan Peele obviously gets the terror along with the levity much better than anyone.
The screams that must have erupted in theaters.
Just sheer terror.
The scariest movie that's ever been made.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to I can't even believe it's episode 8 of 101 Scariest Movie Moments, brought to you by Shudder. We're not part of Shudder. No, it's not. We're not doing it for them, but we're taking their list and we're kind of dissecting it ourselves and giving you our opinion as horror fans, as lifelong horror fans, on what we think they did right, where they kind of missed the boat on some things, and trying to kind of just figure out this whole ranking system and the rules and all that stuff. And it's fun, you know, talking about it with you guys. And as always, it's myself, Garrett from Born to Be Rad, and we have Uncle Bill co-hosting from Dead Pit Radio. What is up, man?
Same old shit, man. I was just like kind of going through all this stuff and like looking back on the top 101 films that Shudder picked. I actually read an article today about like how they picked the films, because you know we've been like talking about that, like how the hell are they like coming up with this list or whatever. So apparently they had a bunch of film directors, they had a bunch of horror journalists, and they had some like executive people from Shudder. That was the group that made up the people that picked the list. So what they said is that they tried to go like internationally. So that's why you see all these weird, like, you know, there'll be some like Asian films and there'll be some European films and like all these different kind of things thrown in. So I'm not sure if this, maybe they got a little bit too like eclectic with it, trying to like, you know, do that, because I'm not sure if this is the real like 101 scariest moments, but it's like they had to put in all these different countries, basically, is what I gathered from reading that. So it was supposed to be that type of list.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely, for sure. They wanted to kind of branch out. I mean, I guess right now it's like, well, you know, everybody's got to get a trophy, you know what I mean? So everybody's got to be included type of ordeal, which I guess is what we assumed, you know. But man, I just can't believe we've been doing this for 8 weeks. Like, it's craziness that, you know, we've had like an 8-week series, because it's not many series that we do that we just do consistent 8 weeks like this. So it's been a fun ride, man. And we're up to the top 10 right now. So this is the last show. And we're talking about the absolute top 10 according to Shudder. But before we do that, we want to kind of get through a couple different things. Maybe we'll just jump in the chat really quick, say hi to who has jumped in so far. And then Uncle Bill's going to take us on a ride and talk about all the films, or list all the films from 101 down to 11 of the ones that have already made this list, in case you kind of happen to miss the first 7 episodes we did. So we got a lot to do here, guys, tonight. Let's get this thing moving.
So here's what I like to see, though. Crash says that he doesn't even try to bother watching the actual Shudder list because it wouldn't be near as good as this.
I love it.
Scott's Wrestling Collection says Jamie Lee Curtis hasn't seen any of these movies and she doesn't know who you are.
No. She doesn't know who I am, doesn't know who you are, and doesn't know these movies. Correct.
Chris Eisen says Uncle Rant is about to be unleashed. I love it. Later. Jesse Swarbuck says greetings. Hello to Carlos. Hello to Brett Stroll.
Do it. That's his gimmick now.
Carlos. Hey, man.
He's made a name for himself already.
Yeah. The mayor's in here. That Horror Critic's in here. Carter Detention's in here. All the usual suspects. Suspiria Knight. Big Jerry Bear's in here. Scratch Burno. Retro Graphics Arcade. Now, that's not one I've ever seen.
No, so welcome, man. And anybody who's in here right now, if you're not subbed over at Born to Be Rad, sub. I do have quite a bit of new subs, so if you're new, just say what's up. I'm a new sub. And Dead Pit Radio, sub over to them too. We're doing a simulcast, so you can see us on both ends. So make sure if you like what you're seeing here, sub to each channel, because we've got a huge show tomorrow night. with Wes as well. And you guys don't want to miss that. It's going to be the Fall and Rise of Halloween 3. And I think it's going to be a real fun show.
Yeah, if everything works out like we think it will, it'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Roberto Benigni Scott is in here. There's no making sense of this list. Well, I tried. I read an article about it. Now, that's about as much research as I'm going to do. Fred the Wolf, Saturn Video,
Freddie.
Robert Long, Bradley Taylor. That's, yeah, Alpha Romero. I'm glad that he's in here. Good to see you, man. Planet Mondo's in here.
What's up, man?
And yeah, I mean, that's about the size of it. So, all right, I'm going to count down from 101 to where we're at right now, which is the top 10. So 101 was It Follows. 100 was The Orphanage. 99 was Salem's Lot. 98 was Dracula. 97 was Black Sabbath. 96 was Pulse. 95 was Strangers. 94 was The Wolfman. I still don't understand that shit. 93 was Cat People. 92 was The Birds. 91 was Mulholland Drive. 90 was Child's Play. I don't understand that. 89 is American Werewolf in London. That was retarded. 88 was Us. 87 was The Witch. 86 was Zombie. 85 was The Changeling. 84 was Phantom of the Opera. 83 was The Brood. 82 was A Tale of Two Sisters. Okay. 81 was Demons. 80 was Doctor Sleep. 79 was Candyman. 78 was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. 78, which kind of went along with it. 77 was The Evil Dead, if you remember. 76 was Dawn of the Dead. 75 was Annihilation. 74 was Cujo. 73 was The Fly. 72 was The Wicker Man. That's ridiculous. 71 was Nosferatu. 70 was Night House, of all things. 69 was The Babadook. 68 was Alien. 67 Last House on the Left. 66 was Terrified. 65 Friday the 13th. 64 Dawn of the Dead. 63 Peeping Tom. 62 A Quiet Place. 61 The Autopsy of Jane Doe. 60 was Phantasm. 59 was Ju-On. 58 was When a Stranger Calls. 57 was Black Christmas. 56 was Jacob's Ladder. 55 was some crap that I can't read. Threads, which none of us have ever seen. 54 was The Howling. 53 was Gerald's Game. 52 was Misery. 51 was Frankenstein. 50 was Nightmare on Elm Street. 49 is Bay of Blood. 48 is The Conjuring. 47 is Get Out. Twin Peaks, I never figured that out, but Twin Peaks was 46. 45 was Pan's Labyrinth. 44 was Rosemary's Baby. 43 was Inside. 42 was Seven. 41 was Zodiac. 40 was 28 Days Later. 39 was 30 Days of Night. 38 was Silence of the Lambs. 37 was Suspiria. 36 Blair Witch. 35 Paranormal Activity. 34 Sixth Sense. 33 Let the Right One In. 32 The Invisible Man. 31 Wait Until Dark. 30 Don't Breathe. 29 Hostel, which should never be on this list. 28 was Lake Mungo. 27 was The Haunting of Bly Manor. No, The Haunting of Hill House, sorry. 26 was It. 25 was I Saw the Devil. 24 was Hellraiser. 23 was The Descent. 22 was Saw. 21 was Scanners. 20 was Wreck. 19 Carrie. 18 Omen. 17 Night of the Living Dead. 16 Exorcist. 15 Final Destination 2. 14 Jaws. 13 Scream. 12 Halloween. And number 11 was Alien, which brings us to where we're at today. Jesus.
Whew. Okay. So, yeah, that was the list right there. Now, knowing what we know now and the top 10 that we got, it makes the list a lot more confusing because as we left off last week,
sorry, look at this.
Gotta go back on the replay.
No, I'm good.
Here's what's interesting. When we left off last week, we gave our prediction. Okay, here's our top 10. I think we even came up with like 12 or 13, yeah. And we said, okay, these 13 movies or whatever have not been on this list. They're going to either be in the top 10 or these movies are not on the list whatsoever. Now, that's what's crazy to me because each one of these ones we're talking about right now, we're going to talk about with our prediction list, even the runner-ups that we thought maybe would get in here. The fact that some of these didn't even make 101 is insane to me because all 14 of these movies, or 13, whatever I'm going to read off, could have been in the top 10. So that's what's wild about this whole thing is that when you look at certain things like Twin Peaks and Haunting of Hill House, like, yeah, they're good, but to me, those are shows or some kind of like series. They should have left those out just due to the fact that if they were going to go that route, then like, where's Midnight Mass? Whereas we could pick so many other miniseries.
Yeah, anything from the X-Files, I think, would have been like scarier than,
Of course. So that's why I'm like, you know what? They should have just X'd those out, these other movies here could have had a place in there, which is wild. So if you guys don't know the top 10 from tonight, I'm going to read off what we predicted last week. Now, what we predicted last week, there was no ranking order. It was just, hey, these movies are going to find a way in this top 10. We said The Thing. We said Poltergeist. We said Hereditary. We said Audition. We said Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We said Exorcist. We said Pet Sematary. We said Psycho. We said The Shining. We said The Ring. Now, then we had some other ones that were like possible runners up, which we hadn't seen yet. And that was things like House of the Devil. We talked about High Tension, Insidious, Amityville Horror. Those ones we had talked about as like, hey, Midsommar, like none of these have been chosen yet. And we're like, we could see all these kind of fitting in this top 10. Well, guys, some of these didn't even make this list at all. And we were pretty close on most of the predictions, I think, except maybe one or two, I believe. Let me see really quick. Yeah, two actually. We didn't predict, but like we kind of brought one up, but one on this list we didn't even bring up at all.
I didn't see this coming, and I really have a lot to say about this when we get to it too, because it's But I mean, overall, we came pretty damn close, and I'm thinking that we did a pretty good job of predicting what was going to be on there, because I knew there was going to be at least one or two where there'd be no way they just throw some shit on there that like you'd have no idea what it would be. But overall, it was a pretty close list.
And what's funny is we can look at this from different angles, right? We can look at this as like scariest movies, or if we want to really nitpick and say scariest movie moments, like even some of the ones that didn't get on the list, I could pinpoint specific moments that I'm like, man, this should have been on the list way before like probably 80 of these movies that are on the list right now. And that's what's wild to me is even the ones that didn't make the list at all. I'm shocked as hell that we saw Last House on the Left and we saw Phantasm. When you look at some of the movies we just talked about right now that didn't even touch this list at all.
Well, okay, let me give you an example too. So Fright Night wasn't on this list at all.
No.
Dracula, the original Dracula, wasn't on this list. They had a Dracula that was like a British version. I can't remember. It was like a Hammer Dracula. That wasn't on this list. Pet Sematary wasn't on this list. Reanimator wasn't on this list. House of a Thousand Corpses. I don't think any Rob Zombie movie was on this list whatsoever. So Sleepaway Camp wasn't on this list. Which, if you want to talk about like scariest moments, like that's a moment that everybody remembers. So I don't know, man.
Because you can't talk about that now. Now it's like doesn't even make sense, really.
No.
So
you can't like Like I would love to see them try to do that movie, just to be trying to do it.
Now at the end, it like pans out when you watch it for the first time. You're like, oh yeah, so what? What's the problem here? Like you can't there's no reaction anymore. Like yes, so what?
Yeah, it's fine. Nothing going on. It's like.
I will come out and say right now, Midsommar didn't make the list at all, and I thought for sure that thing was going to be top 20.
I tell you what I thought they were going to do. I was like, I know what they're going to do. Right when they did it, okay, I was like, they're going to combine the two, like have them like how they do that shit, like they'd have like back to back. I was like, that's what they're going to do, but no.
So, which is wild because again, let's even go back to so Midsommar really quick. I get it, like. Is it scary? No, but that one scene of them jumping off the cliff to me was like one of those scenes where I was like, holy crap, like that was wild. And they beat him with the hammer or whatever. Like that could have easily been on this list. Okay, but I get it. It's not, but it could have been somewhere else on this list, no doubt. The big one though, I'm surprised with is, dude, how can you say the Zelda from Pet Sematary is not on this list at all? Tell me that. That is like honestly one of the scariest movie moments ever. And it's not even in the top 100, but we're getting like Annihilation and shit.
Yeah, it's one where if you ask somebody like, what's the scariest part of Pet Sematary? Like they would immediately go to that scene. They'd either go to that scene or the scene where he gets his ankle like slit open. Either one of those scenes would like, would have worked. And then they got shit on here like people have been saying like, these movies that just came out and like nobody even knows what they are.
It's wild, man. It really is that something like that isn't on this list. And the last one we'll talk about that I think really needs to be talked about that didn't make the top 10 according to Shudder was Amityville Horror.
Oh, that's another one. Like, how does that not make any kind of part of this list?
That's wild, right? Like we were sitting there saying, oh, it's got to be top 10 because it hasn't been on this list. It has to be top 10. Dude, completely shunned, like out of this list. 101 horror movies. We just ran down the list. Twin Peaks was on this, and you can't have Amityville Horror anywhere. Like, that's why I love Phantasm. I love Last House on the Left. But if you asked me which one needed to be on this list, Amityville Horror would have beat those two out, because them to me are great movies and I love them. But if we're going for scary, if we're going to scariest movie moments, Amityville Horror does better at that in this like kind of bracket, in my opinion.
I know. There's a lot of people on here that are saying some like things that didn't make it that probably should too. But regardless, we should probably just get into the list too.
Okay.
All right,
We'll
you
go
want
through
to do
the
it?
first one. I'll just start the first one. Okay, number
right.
10, which is one we predicted because we hadn't seen it yet on this list, and we figured, you know what, it's probably going to get on here, and it's The Ring, or Ringu. I guess they wanted to. To me, like, honestly, I would have taken either here personally. I love The Ring. I think that they did a great job with the remake. When I saw that for the first time in the theaters, that scene they were talking about today, where they climb out of the TV, that I had chills going up and down my spine. With the remake version that I saw in the theaters.
Yeah.
Then I went back and I saw Ringu later. I saw Ring first.
Me too.
So I get it. They're using Ringu because it was the original of the two. But I would have been fine with either or hitting the spot, because I think that's a really effective movie and an effective moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's several moments in that movie that if you're talking about Asian horror, and like I said, I'm not a huge fan of any kind of Asian horror anymore, but because there was a time period for all that, and that time period is kind of past, and it's all become kind of cliche. But that particular movie had more bang for the buck than any of these other movies, I think, combined. So, I mean, Ju-on, whatever. I don't even know anything about Tale of Two Sisters. I don't care that much. But Ringu, yes. Like, that movie, I can understand, like, its place on the list. I don't know if I would have put it number 10, but, I mean, I understand its place on the list, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think, like what we did, when we're talking about the ones that haven't made it, I think I would have put them ahead of The Ring. But The Ring deserved at least top 20 in my opinion, or Ringu, whatever one you want to say. I think it's, when it comes to those Asian horror films, I think it's one of the best still.
Yeah, I mean,
and I haven't seen a ton of them, so I mean, for what the main ones.
I'll say this: it's like that particular movie has a totally unique kind of like premise that hadn't really ever been seen up to that point. So just for that alone, like it should probably be on the list. And for the ending scene, which was mentioned too, like that's kind of iconic now. Like everybody knows that scene. Mm-hmm. And I would probably put it on there just for that.
Okay, so do you want to get into? It seems like everybody's pretty happy with The Ring in the sense of Ringu.
Yeah.
Ringu, people seem pretty happy with it. Maybe a lot of them are saying it doesn't deserve to be top 10, but more or less nobody's hating on it.
Ring 2 terrifies Wes because it reminds me of the deer hunting PC game.
Wow.
Let's see. Ring should be in the top 50, he says, but not top 10. Pulse is scarier. There's some people saying there's some good Asian horror films. Yeah, there is. It's just not my bag. It's not my thing. And there, you have to keep in mind, there was a time period there where we reviewed everything like Tart and Asian Extreme put out, and it just completely like soured me on any of this. Mm-hmm. Rambo says it's the most effective of its kind. I kind of agree with that. Dylan says The Ring is good. And let's see here. Oh God, Metal Man says the only thing scary about The Ring is when you're wiping your ass and that brown ring does not go away. So it's nice to have him on.
Wow, Metal Man, what's up, Brian?
J Horrors for jabronis, really? I don't think it's that bad, but a lot of people are saying Pulse is scarier. I don't know what the.
You know what? I've actually only seen the remake of Pulse, so I haven't seen the original one, so I can't even say anything about it. But this next one is the one that really hit me kind of from left field. I own it. I've watched it once. It's a good movie, but I don't think this deserves to be on this top 10 list. In my opinion, sure, it deserves to be in the top 50, but to sneak into number 9 of all time, that kind of was something you and I hadn't even brought up at all. I don't even know if you've seen this. I've seen it once.
So I saw it one time. Yeah. I mean,
So number 9 on this list is Train to Busan. Now I know a lot of people like it. I know that. I'm kind of over the zombie thing personally. Like I'm not really like besides the classics like Dawn and all that. Like I love that stuff. A lot of like the new zombie stuff. Like I'm really over that stuff at this point. So to me, like zombie stuff doesn't really do it for me anymore, or at least in this period of my life right now. So I don't know. A lot of people are gonna say it's great, but number 9 ever.
See, people are saying, "Oh, I didn't even think about Train to Busan." There's a reason you didn't even think about Train to Busan because it deserve. Like honestly, I thought it was just another kind of like okay Netflix movie when it came out. Like I was just like okay, like I mean, it had a lot of hype. I watched it and I was just like, yeah, I mean they've done shit like this 1,000 other times before, like.
Right.
And the effects weren't very good in my opinion, and it just was an okay Netflix movie. Like the fact to have it at number 9 on a list like this, it should be in the 80s. Like I would have put it in the 70s or the 80s. I would. There's no way I would have put it any higher than that.
Like you said, and I think Freddie said it in here as well. He said, I didn't even think about that. And you're right. Like, that's exactly the point. Like, neither of us did. You guys didn't, because we haven't even seen that enter the chat in the last 7 weeks at all. So the fact, like you said, that nobody thought about it, that means something. That means it doesn't deserve to be in this top 10 spot if nobody mentioned it, right? Not that it's bad. It's just, it's disheartening when you have movies that didn't make this list at all, and something like this, in my opinion, snuck in and took that number 9 spot. And like you said, it's like, you know, was there reasons behind that had to do with like, but I mean, we'll talk more about it as this list goes on today, but
I mean, you got to think that these people, this group of people, thought that this movie, they thought that Train to Busan was better than like The Evil Dead, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. They thought it was scarier than all those movies. I can't. And pretty much everybody's comments on here like sum it up. Like,
the thing too is what they talked about as like, because you know what they do with this list is they talk about the movie and then they kind of give you like some scenes that they like, you know, because it is Scariest movie moments, right? So they try to add scenes in there, even though it's a very loose way that they do it, where they're technically talking about the movie, I'm gonna say, but they're like, oh, you should see this scene where they were getting dragged by the train and they all jumped on each other. Like, no, it was cool, but like that wasn't scary. Really.
I saw that shit in World War Z though, like that same.
I was gonna say World War Z really had a very similar way about it as this one did.
Like I honestly cannot believe that movie like has as much kind of fan base as it does. It's just not. You know, and everybody's saying here, 90% of the people are saying it isn't like a top 10 movie, and it's not. Like, come on, man. Like, the only reason they put it there was because they had just, like, well, you'll see why they put it there. It's like, it'll make sense shortly. They just had, like, another Asian film, and they had to put that on there. It's like, come on.
Yeah, like even the ones like we said that didn't make the list. You're telling me that Zelda from Pet Sematary doesn't deserve to be 101 scariest movie moments, and Train to Busan is number 9. That's what's wild to me. Is that like how did they miss that? It's weird, man.
This is the problem, though. We didn't think of it, which makes us not good people. We're not good people.
Yeah, that's not good.
Shudder wants us to always understand that some of these movies are very difficult to watch. But just because that you like them when you watch them, you're still a good person.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind. All right, so that to me is just not even that's a no-brainer. That was the one in this top 10 where I was like, it does not deserve to be here.
I know. Fred made a good point. Train to Busan beats Halloween. Yeah,
it does. Now, number 8, we had mentioned it. I know that I had mentioned it. I'm pretty sure.
We mentioned it last week as like a possibility, but it was a possibility because we know it's good and it's scary, but it was kind of like a long shot because we're like, holy crap, we're in top 10 and there's so many movies they haven't talked about yet. So I wasn't mad about this. I don't know if I would say it's top 10, but I mean it's effective, man.
In terms of like scary moments, like I'll be honest, like this movie really affected me like when I first saw it. So I can kind of get this more than like something like Train to Busan.
I
So
agree.
number 8 is Sinister.
Hmm.
And Sinister is one of those movies where the first time I watched it, I maybe watched it like a couple of times and like I liked it, but I just kind of forgot about it. And then it just kind of like, it's like it gets stuck in the back of your head somewhere. And the more you think about it, at least in my case, the more I thought about it, like the more I was kind of like, this is a really effective movie. Like it's a lot more effective than you realize because a lot of those images kind of just stay with you.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty underrated. It's one of those movies, like you said, like to me, I found it very effective when I saw it in theaters. And I'll be quite honest, I haven't really gone back and checked it out. Not because I didn't like it, I own it, but it was always like, it's kind of a hard watch, kind of like
Yeah, it
because
is.
because it is effective, right? So it's kind of like you get kind of irritable watching it because you're like, holy crap, this is an effective movie. I don't know how much I want to continue to watch this. But, case in point, we're talking about Sinister, we're talking about Train to Busan and stuff. And like what comes to my head is, in my opinion, I think like Blair Witch would be ahead of these two
I do too.
if I was making the list.
Yeah, I do too. This comment comes out of left field. I don't know what this has to do with anything, but I'm going to put it up here. Was there ever like a chance you would do that, Bradley? Was that like a discussion?
She's at her age too. It's like in the contract.
Yeah. Oh man, Rambo says Sinister. Fuck that noise. I mean, I like that movie. Like I do. Like I can't like. It's a very effective movie, and I don't think anybody can like think that it's not. I immediately bought part 2. Part 2 kind of sucks. I really didn't like part 2.
I never seen it.
Joshua says it's a joke. See, this could go either way because it's a newer film. Like with a film like that where it's like it could go either way with people.
It's so funny because I agree with you. In my head, I'm like, it's a newer film, but when did this come out? It's probably really not that new.
Well, I'd say like what, like 2007 or
I don't know, but I mean, think about how old that is.
2010.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know when that movie came out. Like this is mid 2000, late 2000, somewhere there. Dylan says he loves Sinister. Well, this is the thing. The problem is comparing all these movies to the other movies that came like before them, which is
Actually,
not
let's just piss everybody off. This got higher than Jaws. All right, let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So, they're gonna be doing like they're gonna be doing like 40th anniversary Blu-rays and 4Ks for Sinister. Probably not.
No one even talks about Sinister, but that's true. It's kind of like it doesn't exist.
They don't.
Would I put Sinister in the top 10? Here's the thing: if we were going by like overall horror films, no. If we're going by like what this is supposed to be about, like scariest kind of like moments in films, yeah, I would, because a lot of those images, like I said, like always stuck with me, and that's just a horrifying premise for a movie anyway. Which makes it even more amazing that they did it in the time period that they did. That's like a movie that would be done in the 80s or 70s or late 70s.
Chris said that Jaws was number 1 on Bravo's list, and it didn't even crack what it was like 15 or something, I think, or 12 or whatever.
Here you go. Here's your request, Garrett, by the way.
Ooh, ooh.
If you want to. Exchanged nudes and bandanas.
So yeah, guys, we're that's number 8. So I mean, I think the first 3 of the top 10 a little bit controversial, in my opinion. I think good, but top 10 is top 10, man. That's like you're thinking of classics, right? You're thinking like the Jaws, like you're going to see that in here. And the kind of the rest of the list is stuff you and I called.
Yeah. Now we really get into it. Like this is where shit just kind of fell into place.
So number 7, which looking at what's on here, okay, I guess we kind of predicted this was possibly going to be number 1, and that's The Exorcist at number 7. I mean, what can you say that hasn't already been said? One of the best. You look at it from horror movie, scariest movie moments. No matter what category you put Exorcist in, it is top tier every time.
Just wanted to show you that real quick. So, yeah, there's nothing you can say about The Exorcist. Like, it's one of the greatest horror films ever made. It's a really great film in general, and it's got like some of the scariest, most memorable scenes of all time. I would have put it at number one. There's no question in my mind I would have. But the fact it's in the top 10 is correct. So, you know, it ain't that big of a fucking stretch, really. Pretty much every scene from the finale of that movie could be in this list. Like, you could have everything that happens.
Yeah.
They single out the crucifix scene, of course, because that's the one that always like jars everybody. And still to this day, I don't think they could do shit like that. They haven't. Like,
no, I mean, even watching it now, you're thinking to yourself, how did they get that to happen?
yeah,
How did that get through to theaters with that scene in there and not get cut? Like, it boggles my mind that because it's such a wild scene. We're talking about a child, you know, technically, like it's crazy to think that kind of stuff was something that it passed through the ratings, you know?
yeah. Like, I mean, if you consider that that's like a child, and they showed that, like, how the fuck did that?
I don't know.
The '70s was a hell of a decade for movie making. I'll say that.
I see Matt in there. Matt, I'm probably not getting it. I just have too many Exorcist prints and stuff. That's true, Leo. He is. I mean, he did a fantastic job.
Pretty much everybody on here says it should be higher and that it's an amazing movie, and it is. It's a, you know, masterpiece of a film, and Freaking made 3 films in a row there. Well, basically in a row that were all classics. But yeah, what are you gonna say? What else are you gonna say about The Exorcist? It's number 7.
Nothing
And
you can
also,
say, man, I'm curious I'm intrigued by the new ones. I'll tell you that. I'm not going to sit there and shit on them. I'm intrigued by them. Guys, we haven't got. I'm surprised at this point there hasn't been an Exorcist remake up until now. So I'm curious to see what they do with this. I said this on my stream last night. David Gordon Green's doing it. He did the Halloween ones. My biggest thing is the same thing I have a problem with when it comes to his Halloweens is that as individual movies, I kind of like them each individually. As a story, as a large trilogy, I don't think it works. The Halloween ones, because to me it seems like when you say you're going to come out with 3 movies, you should have a story in place that's going to go through 3 movies. There should be a story in place. David Gordon Green seemed like every time there was a movie to do, he like just was like, oh, like let's figure it out as we go. And that's my concern with Exorcist is that if we're already saying there's going to be 3, like let them connect, let it make sense. Don't just every time there's a new one to come out, you're like, oh, we'll think about what to do when we get there.
I don't think story arc is his strong suit, Garrett. If we're being honest,
it's like it reminds me of like some of WWE where they just like throw gimmicks out the window, you know.
Yeah. It's like 50-50 booking. They're just like, what the fuck happens, you know.
yeah, like it's wild, you know. Like
he's 50. He's like 50-50 filmmaking. He's just like, we'll just throw some scenes in there, see what happens.
Like when Kofi comes out of Raw and it's like, the Jamaican thing ain't working. Just go out there and be a regular guy. Everybody's like, what's going on here? Yeah, that's my biggest problem is that he obviously, when he did Halloween, he didn't have a plan at all, or he did and he completely just squashed it like as he was going. So that's my biggest concern about Exorcist.
The thing about The Exorcist that they'll never do now, though, that made it so effective, is it was all practical effects. And you know, even a lot of the stuff that looked like it would, you know, would have been done by some sort of, you know, visual effects was done practically. So, like the scenes with the albums and stuff flying against the wall and all the stuff in the room flying against the wall. So they'll never do that now. So it'll, you know, no matter what, it'll look like shit in that way. I guarantee it. But it could have some redeeming qualities. We don't know.
The mayor says Danny McBride's going to be Father Karras.
That's right. What the fuck is the deal with Danny McBride being like involved in all this stuff? That's the weirdest.
He's like the horror guy now.
That's the weirdest crossover since like RoboCop was in WCW.
It's so funny.
Number 6, though, you've got to. You've got to include this in a list like this. I've probably seen this movie more times than I could count, just like The Exorcist. But number 6 is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I can't imagine anybody disagreeing that should be in the top 10. Like,
Yeah, no, we call that. It easily deserves to be in the top 6, no doubt, no doubt.
yeah, and that's another movie where it's like all the scenes in that movie are iconic now. So there's no point in talking about it because I mean everybody knows all the scenes in that film. You know, the scene where he busts her with the axe, and the scene where he's like walking her up the stairs they mentioned, and the scene where she finds the typewriter, the scene with the old woman, which I think is the most effective scene in the whole movie, actually.
Right.
Like if you want to talk about terrifying scenes or whatever. Just everything in that movie works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's on a different that movie's like it's on a different planet somehow or another. Like there's just no sense of reality throughout that movie. From the minute that he actually gets there, it's just like it's taking place somewhere else. Like, and I think that was kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly effective though.
I just saw something in here. They where was it? I just saw a good Scott's Wrestling Collection said Stephen King would say The Shining doesn't belong on this list.
Yeah, he would.
But yeah, people are happy with where it is.
I don't know though. I'll put it to you this way. Think about this for a second. And I went back and watched this movie probably about a year ago. Stephen King was creatively involved in Mick Garris's The Shining like miniseries that he put out. Mm-hmm. So that's the one that he wanted out. That thing's a piece of shit. So like nobody remembers that, nor should you remember that. So I mean, if that's what he wanted, then I think that the movie audiences have kind of spoken about that. Yeah, so everybody pretty much is on board with The Shining.
Mm-hmm. It deserves it, no doubt. Yeah, like these next ones, I mean, more or less, you can't disagree with them, but I know people are going to have a hard time about a couple of them, and still, I think, because of where they're placed, which is understandable, but I think, you know, what we talk about next is what we assumed was going to be here. We just didn't know the order. So we'll go to number 5, guys, and it's Psycho. And I mean, the expectation was it would be top 5.
My thought was, like from before, was that it would be Exorcist 1, Psycho 2. That's how I thought like it would fall. I didn't know what was going to happen after that, but I was completely wrong about that. But they are pretty close in the rank. I can't argue with this one either. Like, who could?
And that's the thing. It's like it's not even really worth, you know, talking much about because what else can we say about Psycho that hasn't already been said? I mean, it's all-time classic. I mean, the scene that they showed is the scene we knew. I mean, there's plenty of freaky scenes in that movie. I mean, they're not talking about sequels and stuff, but I actually enjoy the Shining sequel. I mean, the Psycho sequels as well, even though they came far past when that movie was in its prime.
Yeah, man. And if you think about it, like there are a couple movies that I could point to and be like, this movie influenced like a whole other era of horror films. And probably none more so than Psycho. Like, I mean, it invented an entire genre of films, really, that had never really been done. And, well, so did Night of the Living Dead, but that motherfucker's like, what? Like 70-something? I don't even remember what it was now, but it's like nowhere near where it should have been.
No. Freedom responds better.
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead was 17, so whatever. Anyway, point being, like, Psycho is one of the most influential movies, if not horror movies of all time. On a side note here, while we've got well over 100 people in here watching this, now would be a good time to click and like and subscribe. Born to be Rad and Dead Pit, and you know, basically just show your support for everybody involved. That would be nice.
Especially like we said, you want to sub because we're simulcasting tomorrow night. I think maybe 10:30. I don't know exactly what the time is on that, but it's going to be a big one. And Wes is going to be with us, and we're going to be doing the Fall and Rise of Halloween 3. As we lead up to Halloween itself. So I think you guys are going to want to check that out. It's going to be a real fun one. But as we move on to number 4, now, again, we're going to probably see a little bit of problems here with some people being like, well, I would have probably put Psycho ahead of this, or I would have put Exorcist ahead of this. But this is an effective movie, and we had said last week we knew this was probably going to hit the top 10. And that is Audition, which is another Asian horror movie, which is super effective. I think it was pretty high on Bravo's list as well.
I mean, it's just one of those things to me, though, where there's about 20 minutes of this film that is effective and about another hour and 20 minutes that bored the living piss out of me. So, like, that's my only issue with the film. Like, I get why it's on this list. There's no way I would have put it this high. I get it, though. I understand because it does. Like, it has a big following. There's some really effective scenes in the movie, but like people forget a huge portion of this film is just him like looking for a date, basically. And it's like there's a long period of time where shit all goes on. So I don't know. It's not as visually interesting, I guess, as something like The Shining or something.
I agree. I don't think it. I knew it should have been. I knew it was going to be in top 10. I didn't think it was going to be this high. Now, you know, like we said before, after reading that article where they wanted to kind of try to dabble from different countries and show the diversity of horror and all this kind of stuff, do you think that they were like, well, we've got to put one in top 5, and that kind of just got snuck in? Like, do you think it was more of like, this didn't deserve to be here over Shining and Exorcist, but it got here because of like the politics of how the list was being taken?
That comment killed me.
Oh.
Ben Tramer says, in my expert opinion, oh shit, this cop car is coming right at me.
Oh, poor Ben Tramer. I love
him. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. Audition was 11 on Bravo. Okay.
Yeah, he's right. I saw Alfa Romero said, they even said it. Like, they were like, oh, yeah, like the Audition is creepy, but it's kind of like a romantic comedy. Like, you can't say that. and then be like, oh, yeah, it's like.
Yeah, it's number 4.
It's a romantic comedy.
Oh, God. So Joshua says the boring stuff makes the ending more impactful. That's true, but I don't want to watch an hour of somebody just like kind of wandering around wistfully. I would watch a Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey movie if I wanted to do that. A lot of people like it, but they're just like, it's too high, which is definitely true.
It's number 4. Yeah, it's too high. I agree. I could see this in like 8, 9.
All they talked about during this segment was how offensive that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
It's like, dude, we get it. We understand. You're good people. Like, we get it. We understand that.
Like, you know, we just don't really like American Pie anymore. It wasn't nice. Like,
yeah.
Like those movies, like are time. Like, do you think that they could ever make a movie like that ever again? American Pie?
No, I think that's all over with. All of that, you could like forget it.
Stifler would have been in jail within like the first 10 minutes of that movie. He'd be in prison.
It's like I think comedies are dead in general, man. You can't make anything funny nowadays because they won't let you do that.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, people are saying vomiting into a bowl isn't scary. It's gross. Like, I mean, if they were going for like gross factors, then they could have had Ebola syndrome in this top 10. You know what I mean?
Listen, Brian, we ain't on your fucking schedule, buddy. We'll get to it when we get to it.
We're almost there, Brian.
Drink a cup of coffee, sober up a little bit. We're getting to it.
All right. So number 3, I'm sure again we knew
Liam lives in Seattle. Sorry. Some of these damn comments are amazing. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Someone said never been kissed is number 1. No, so I love this movie. I think this is a modern classic. I think it's going to go down as one of the scariest movies of all time. I'm fine with it being in the top 10. I'm fine with it and being top 5. Top 3 right now, I don't know. I'm on the fence about it, and that is Hereditary. We knew this was going to be high on the list. Did we know it was going to be this high? I don't know. I would have probably put this at 5, maybe. But I think it's freaking great. I think it does everything well. But I can see a lot of people being like, it is.
Rambo's going to shit himself. Like, there were a lot of people that said that this was going to be that type of list where it was like the woke list where, you know, everything like that was going to be in the top 5. And they weren't too wrong. I don't think I would have put Hereditary in the top 3. I think that's, but would I put it in the top 15? Probably, because let's be honest, if you're going through like disturbing, scary shit, like it doesn't get much. That movie made me so uncomfortable, man, watching it. It made me like feel like I was going to have a goddamn panic attack or something. Like it's just that type of movie.
Yeah, and I mean everybody knows the big scene with the young girl, and yeah, that was a shocking scene. Oh my God, Ari Aster has this thing where, and I like it. I like the way he does things. He has a nice story. It could be considered slow to a lot of people, but he's building, building, building. You're learning about characters. You're engaging in the story. It drags for a little bit, and then there's always this one moment that just turns the movie from like that to like, all right, now we're gonna get into some shit. And that was the scene in Hereditary where Midsummer. We talked about, there's that one scene where everything kind of hits the fan, and then from there on out, it becomes craziness. So, but what I like that they talked about in this is what I found more effective in Hereditary were those scenes where like people were off in the darkness, and if you missed it, you missed it. But if you saw it, your heart like stopped, because that's in the theater. I remember looking at me like, holy crap, is that something there? Like, and there's no jump scare, there's no noise, it's just silence, and you're looking around thinking what's going on in the scene. And you might see something over in the corner, and if you do, that's freaky, man. That is freaky to me.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff like when she's doing the models and stuff like that, and like it's panning around the room, and you just see like little shit like happening, and people just kind of show up and stuff. That it was beyond like jump scares, and especially the scene that they mentioned, and that scene stuck with me too. Like, I've never seen anybody do this. I don't think anybody has that I know of, but there was the scene where after the girl is decapitated, it shows like the kid just goes to bed, which is something that probably would happen because like you'd be so like in shock that you'd probably just blank out. But the part that makes it so effective is it just shows him in the bed, and then like you hear them going down to the car, and then they find the body and all the shit that happens after they find the body, while it's still just like a close up on him. Something about that scene always just like freaked me out. Like,
of course, because imagine being in his position. You're laying in bed and you hear them screaming, saying, "Oh shit, they just found it. Now what's going to happen next to me or to the family?" Like that, he knows at that point in time is a turning point right there for everybody. And he's just sitting in bed, like he could have came home and like, "Ma, you're never going to believe what happened," but he just went to bed, and it's like that tension is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. This is a very mixed film, and we kind of knew it would be too. Some people say that they love it. Some people say that they hate it. It never would be a top 10 list. Some people say Ari Aster's brilliant. Some people say he's a fucking joke. So.
I like him. Everything I've seen from him right now, I am all in on him.
Yeah, I am too. There's like 3 modern filmmakers right now that I would watch anything that they came out with, and he's definitely one of them.
I would say him, Ty West, and Flanagan are 3 for me that I'm really in. And I'm actually even I'll go check out anything Jordan Peele does right now. I mean, yeah. I think Jordan Peele's on that fine line to me where like he's either gonna stay consistent or he's gonna get into that Shyamalan role where all of a sudden like this next movie for him needs to be a hit, or I think we're gonna go down a weird spiral like we did with M. Night. I think so. I think he's got a lot of work to do to on his next one, because for me he's 3 for 3 on movies that I liked, and each one was vastly different.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be very interested to see what he can do to keep himself up there on number 4. But
I think that I'll throw Robert Eggers in there too, because he's the most experimental of all those guys, I think, in terms of like what the kind of films that he's putting out. I always like to try to watch what he's going to do next. I would put like Flanagan and Astor and Peele and all those guys up there too. Number 2, I want to do this one because this one is like my favorite. This is in my top 3 like horror films of all time. I'll go ahead and say that. And I was really like surprised it made it this high. And to me, it deserves to be this high because it is like one of the best horror films ever made. Number 2 is John Carpenter's The Thing. I think, I'll just say this, I've thought this for a long time. I think The Thing is better than Halloween. Like, I think it's a better film. I mean, I know it doesn't have a franchise behind it and all that shit, and like, but I would rather watch The Thing at this point than I would watch Halloween. I think it's a better made film.
Man, I kind of agree with you on that. The Thing is something. It's just so different. I remember the first time I saw it, man, like those effects are just so unreal to me still to this day. Like, I don't think there's been anything better than what we got in that movie as far as creativity or how they looked or how they even still hold up. And it's got a lot of tension in that movie. It's got a great atmosphere being out in the snow and stuff. Like, it just works on all levels. And to be honest, as this list was going down today, I was kind of getting a little bit nervous. I'm like, holy shit, we're at number 2. I'm like, is The Thing not going to be on this list at all? Like, I really thought at this point, I'm like, The Thing is not going to hit this list. We only have 2 left. I'm looking at my list and I'm like, there's still so many more that I can see fitting in here. I got nervous. I didn't think this was going to be on here, but I'm glad. I'm very glad it did. And
I think that at this point, I was like, I don't think Pet Sematary is going to be on the list.
right. I
was like, once we got up here, I was like, some of these movies that we were really like kind of trying to champion were not going to make it once you got to The Thing here. But
what Freddie says that The Thing was number 48 on Bravo's list. So think about that jump from 48 to 2. Like, that's crazy.
God, man, it's just like, to me, that movie is a masterclass on how you make a tense, atmospheric film, and just the makeup effects alone in that movie. They still hold up to this day. That movie is 41 years old, so Jesus, man.
And somebody asked if they made a remake. No, they made a prequel to The Thing a couple years ago, which, here's the thing. I didn't hate it, but you can't make a prequel with CGI when The Thing is supposed to come afterwards and it has practical. You just can't do it. It doesn't
I think
work.
that was in the time period, though, when Hollywood was like, all up CGIs. That's like, we're making everything better. Like, you know, all this stuff looked like, you know, all this stuff looked so cheesy back when they made these films. So we're making it all better with CGI. And like, it was just some of the worst shit ever.
Especially because it's like, this is supposed to take place before that one. So I'm like, wait, so it's like, it just looked like a cartoon. And then in the 80s, they got better looking. It was freaking weird. But yeah, I mean, I don't see anybody saying anything about
except Saturn Video, who's just, I believe, being obtusely kind of pessimistic every time he's, yeah.
Hey, I mean, I'm actually pretty, and I will say this about this whole list is, I think the top 2, in my opinion, I was happy with it because it was good to see these 2 movies get the credit that they deserve, because sometimes I felt that they could have been shunned a little bit. Like, even like I said, I at this point, I'm like, oh my God, I don't think The Thing's going to make it on this list. And thank God it did. And as we get into number 1, which I'm sure a lot of people know what it's going to be now, but at the same time, I did not expect this to be number 1.
I didn't either, but I can't argue it. I cannot argue it.
I'm actually very impressed that they gave this number 1, because it's a movie universally loved, more or less, but to like the people on Shudder that are doing these lists and talking about all these current movies and we're good people, all this crap, like to slide this in number 1 and say this is the best. I was impressed that this snuck out when the easy answer could have been Exorcist, right? That could have been the easy, safe Exorcist or Psycho or The Shining. Like, those 3 would have been like a safe answer. Yeah. But they went out, and what did they say number 1 was? UB?
Number 1 was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, how do you argue with that? I think it's the best example of like lightning in a bottle. Like, you'll never recreate it. It was made at exactly the right time with exactly the right people, with the exact right director who did like everything correctly in that movie. I don't, you know, I can't argue with it being at number 1. It could easily be on anybody's number 1 list.
I agree. I mean, if you or I were making this list, Texas Chainsaw could have been number 1. It was probably easily top 3. But to have a list that's on like Shudder, that all these people got together and made a list, like it's nice to see that it got the credit that us as fans know it deserves. Where I was shocked that it got number one.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is the perfect horror film. Like, if you were gonna like make something just the most unsettling kind of film that you could think to make, that would be it. And it gets lost that movie is, I don't even know how, it was 74 when it came out. So, I mean, it's almost 50 years old. So, the fact that what makes it so effective is the same thing that makes Psycho effective, is that you don't really see a whole lot, but the shit that you do see is just horrifying. The imagery is like always there. And it feels real. Like there's something about the way that movie was shot, and it just feels like it's actually going on, especially that dinner scene, because it doesn't seem like anybody would make anything that crazy that was actually trying to be like making a real film. It makes no logical sense, the end dinner scene or anything like that. So it just seems like it was made for real,
Now, and you're right. It does not feel like any other film. Like you said, the way it was shot, it like sometimes you watch that movie and you can almost like smell it, like the gasoline or like the fried food or something. Like there's something about that movie that there's nothing else like it. Like I don't know how they did it. I don't know if it's the specific grain of the movie or what it is, but it really does feel like a documentary almost at some specific scenes. And I don't think it's ever been recreated as far as that look. The only thing, like I could even trying to think of like anything back then that kind of could have fit like that look. Like, I don't know, maybe Last Housey a little bit, but it was very different in tone. But I'm just trying to think of the way it was shot and all that other stuff. But yeah, man,
the best thing that movie did, even more so than something like The Exorcist, which actually had like a couple of name people in it, nobody in that film, nobody knew anybody in that film. Like there was no name actors or anything like that. And that just made it even more real. Like you didn't know any of these people. You'd never seen them in anything really. Like, so it just felt more realistic too.
And I mean, nobody went on to be a big star either, right? So
no.
I mean,
Gunnar Hansen probably worked the most, and he didn't really, do a whole heck of a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But okay, if we were to go through these comments,
sure, let's go back.
Nobody is arguing like this at all. It's a perfect storm of filmmaking, way better than The Exorcist. For it be the most effective, straightforward horror film, I think so. There's quite literally no other movie like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
You know what? Rotted Dead's not wrong. He says Deranged from '74 kind of has a similar feel.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Drayton Sawyer's in here. Wants to know if he wants some barbecue.
What's up, Drayton?
Franklin's sucking on that meat.
Your brother broke the door.
I think he was the most effective character in that movie, really. Like,
what always made me laugh was when he says, "Go get your grandpa" or whatever. Like, go get your grandpa. And Hitchhiker looks over at Leatherface and he goes, "Hey, Leatherface, let's go get grandpa." I'm like, he calls his brother Leatherface. That's what he calls him. Hey, Leatherface, go get your brother. Like, go get grandpa. Like, imagine if your brother called you like Leatherface. Like, that's your nickname. That's your name.
This is my favorite scene in that whole movie, I think, is the scene where, because it's so, like, I don't even know how you think to do something like this. It's so crazy, but, like, it's the scene where he's got her, like, in the car, and she's got, like, the bag over or whatever, and he's talking to her, and he's like, hey, it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be, and then he starts hitting her and laughing and shit, and he's like, it's going to be okay. It's like, what?
Imagine being in that bag. Like, he's like, it's going to be okay. And you kind of like get a little ease, and all of a sudden you're like, what the f-? You're like whacked in the head with like a broomstick.
It's oh, yeah.
The old way with the sledge.
Yeah. It's a good picture.
The guy made it that way.
Every scene in that film, basically, yeah.
Blood Force International says my dad calls me Leatherface.
I just can't take no pleasure in killing. This guy's like a Drayton Sawyer quote machine. It's great.
I love it.
But that's
That's the list, guys. I mean, again, very controversial, very polarizing list. It's wild again because I'm shocked, especially with something that came out now. There's no Insidious on this list, and that actually shocks me a lot. That didn't make the list at all. And I was saying, oh man, Insidious is going to be top 20, no question.
yeah. Well, I think like I said, I think they put The Conjuring in there, and that was like they were like, all right, we got James Wan covered. Like, just move on to something else. There's a lot of shit in this list, though, man. They could have easily taken out and put like some of these other films in that would have been better. But I think, like what they said that they were doing, like they were trying to cover all the bases, get all the countries involved, you know. And so because of that, they left out a lot of things that were probably more deserving. Like some of this shit, and we've been through it before, should not be on this list. You can't have stuff like, you know, Rosemary's Baby right alongside the Twin Peaks TV episode, like below, like, you know, they got shit like the Zodiac on here, but they don't have, you know, stuff like Pet Sematary.
Yeah, okay, you're right. That's another one. Like the Zodiac's on here, but like House of the Devil's not on here. Like House of the Devil was a freaking when that came out, that hit me real hard. That was a great and a freaky and a scary movie that, man, we're talking Ty West, man. Everybody's ex-crazy Pearl, and nobody wants to bring up any of his stuff on 101 list. Like, that dude kills it. I'm shocked that he didn't get talked about at all on this thing.
I mean, I'll be curious. Like, to be honest with you, I was really amazed that no Rob Zombie film made this list. Like, I would have thought, surely to God, like something. If they're going to put Hostel on there, like, surely.
They gotta be on Eli, though. Eli's like hooked in with that crew. Rob Zombie, they probably had like House of a Thousand Corpses on there, and then when they saw Monsters, they like took it off.
It's like, yeah, this guy he's not doing anything.
Get this out of here. I see a comment from Jack Frost. I did see that mask, brother. I'm gonna get that mask. I don't know if I'm gonna get that one that the guy's making, but I gotta look into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it. It's like paper mache. I mean, like, is that what it's called? Like, I think it's paper mache or something. No, remember we used to do an art class where you'd like it would harden up or whatever.
Yeah, that's paper mache, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's what the mask is made out of. So I don't know if I'm gonna get that one, but I will get that mask. I'm sure it'll come out from a bunch of companies.
Just keep in mind, like the mayor says, now that we've watched the whole list, we're all good people. After watching every episode, we're good people.
And Robert Long, The Beast Within is a great underrated movie. I mean, there's some scenes in that are effective, for sure. But guys, like, it's been a fun 8 weeks. It's been a controversial 8 weeks. It's been cool to do like on me and Uncle Bill's show, which is nice to do every week. If you like this and you like the dynamic and like this kind of show, like let us know. Like if you have any other ideas, maybe we'll take like a couple weeks off and then come back on like the Wednesday night and. I mean, I don't know. We could even tackle that old Bravo list just to kind of see like what the heck was going through their heads at that time. Because I guarantee there's a lot of movies that are on that list that we hadn't seen on this one.
I guarantee it. Yeah, it would be interesting to go back through that too. We had some laughs. We had some cries.
Now, just let us know in the comments after this video is over if you're watching the replay what you guys think about that idea. Also, too, if anybody knows, I know Fred's been kind of looking at it. What was Amityville Horror on the Bravo list? Just out of curiosity, because again, it didn't make 101 on this one. So I'm just curious where it landed in. I
really do think that it would be a cool idea to do like the top 20 like worst horror film scenes, to where we do like, you know, the dog flashback from Hills Have Eyes 2 and like just some shit like that, like a top 20 list like that.
I think that, I know Wes had mentioned that or whatever. That's definitely something that cool. I mean, it's going to take a lot of research, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you can make 101, but maybe 20 is doable. So yeah, people seem to want to do the Bravo list too.
Yeah, I would love to do the Bravo list. Because,
so I'm curious though. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
What? Amityville wasn't on Bravo's list either?
Oh, that's weird.
Really? That is weird. Very weird. Wow. Okay. I guess we like this movie more than it deserves to most people, I guess. That's interesting.
That's bizarre, man. Overall though, like I really enjoyed this show. Like I didn't agree with a lot of it, but it was still like it kept you on your toes at least. Like you didn't know what was going to be in it, like what they were going to do or anything like that. So I was kind of happy with that. They could have been like very formulaic, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I think I just lost you. Oh, I'm back.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, you can. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Fred says Wizard of Oz was on Bravo's list. That's very interesting. That is wild. Yeah.
I mean, that could be on the scariest scene list. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really confused about Amityville because to me, I always thought that was like growing up. It was like one of the scariest movies. So that is a little bit wild. But what were you saying before? I thought I cut out. I couldn't hear you. You mentioned something.
Did I mention something?
I don't know. I thought so. But yeah, guys. So here's what you guys can do. If you're not subbed to my channel at Born to Be Rad, sub over there. If you're not subbed to Dead Pit Radio, sub over there. Please like this stream if you're watching it live or on the replay, and keep your eyes peeled because tomorrow night we are going to be doing Halloween 3 simulcast with Dead Pit, and we're going to be talking the fall and rise of that. Halloween Ends just came out, very controversial film. And Halloween 3 is probably one of the most controversial films when it comes to the Halloween franchise because, and we'll get into this tomorrow, but when I was really collecting and getting into movies, I was told by people that were real big horror fans, don't even bother with Halloween 3. So many years went by and I didn't even watch the thing because I was always told to stay away from it because it's like there's no Myers, it's garbage. And I did. And then finally I checked it out and I was like, what? Like why would they ever tell me not to watch this thing? And then ever since then, I loved it. And the fan base has obviously flipped and grew a lot through the last couple of years.
By the way, wouldn't you think that end scene would be on this list?
I mean, it could have easily been on the 101, no question.
If they're going to put the fucking Exorcist 3 on there, they could have put the end scene from Halloween 3. I mean, they're clearly doing sequels, so I think that's one of the most effective scenes in any horror film, really, like when all that's happening towards the end of the movie and he's like on the phone and all that. So I don't know, it could have made the list. But yeah, same story here. Like everybody from my dad to anybody that I knew that liked horror films used to say, don't ever watch Halloween 3 because, it's just stupid and it doesn't have Michael Myers in it and it's a joke and all that. And then after a while you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, this is like one of the best films in the series, the whole damn franchise.
No doubt. And then I'll be away on this weekend. I'll be at Chiller. So Fred the Wolf's in here. I'll be hanging out with him. What's up, Brendan? And Brendan, I haven't forgot about you, pal. So you're all set up. I got your thing ready to go. And then I should be dropping my Halloween ranking on Monday when I get back. And that's kind of what I have planned up for the rest of the month. Do you guys have anything else besides tomorrow?
We got a commentary on Halloween 3 that we're doing that I guess was a fan request. I don't remember when the hell we're doing that, but that'll be coming out soon too. Other than that, I can't think of anything. I mean, after this shit that's coming up, there's going to be a hiatus for a while because, it's going to be the slow November.
Yeah,
period.
I mean, it will be a little bit slow November, but I think I've got a lot of ideas because it's like with this, I was like, you know what? It's Halloween. Let's get some Halloween stuff out there. Ends just came out. So I kind of filled my plate with a lot of like Halloween related stuff where now I can kind of breathe a little bit and be like, okay, let's now I can start getting into some different stuff, which would be nice to kind of do and whatnot. So, which is cool because there's a lot of things I think that we've been talking about that we just like trying to wait for the right time to do it. But guys, thank you so much for hanging with us. It's been a cool 8 weeks. I think we're going to probably take like a week or two off for this Wednesday, but we're going to regroup and kind of figure out what's next. If you guys like this, let us know in the chat and in the comments, like, hey, we want you guys, here's an idea, try this. Maybe you can do a series on this. Or, hey, let's just hit that Bravo list and do the exact same concept. That'll be easy enough for us to do. Just watch like 10, we'll make it into 10 episodes every 10 or whatever. It's fine. But that's everything from me. Oh yeah, so Wes is in here and he says Goriest Horror is a possibility for next month.
I would love to do that. That'd be like one of my favorite shows if we ever get our asses around to doing it. Like, because that's kind of like my favorite subgenre or whatever. It's just like overtly gory kind of films like that.
Well, you got to check out Terrifier 2, I hear, if that's the case. So.
Oh, I did, man.
Oh, you watched it?
Did you watch it yet?
No, not yet.
Shh, dude.
Let me ask you this, because I'm going to ask you this really quick. You don't spoil it, but I didn't like the original one at all, so I had actually no plans on watching this at all. But I heard so many great things about it. People saying it's a better story. It's a more of a movie than just like a chase for an hour or whatever. And it's fun and all this stuff. Now, coming from you, who I know is super picky when it comes to shit, so I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Okay, so does it have a better story? Yes. And it actually has a lot more symbolism and like themes in it than the first one did. The first one was just kind of like an updated Maniac or something like that. You know what I mean? So this one actually has like kind of an interesting like sub story with the characters. And it's got some of the most batshit crazy kind of just like come out of nowhere scenes where you're inside of like Art's head and things like that. And I think that's like some of the most effective stuff in the film. The gore in it is so realistic and goes on for so long that like I would not watch this film with anybody. Like anybody. Like I don't give a shit who it is. Like if you don't want to seem like you're a serial killer, I would not watch this film with people that are not into horror films because it is like it is as brutal as you can imagine anything could be and like more than that. It's probably the most intensely like graphic kind of gore I've seen in a film. That's realistic. You know what I mean? Like kind of like in the same vein as the guinea pig murders films or the whatever those were.
Those aren't really my jam. So like that's why I'm concerned if this one is like it's just gonna be like, all right, they just wanted to make a gory, gross movie, and like that's not gonna be enough for me. So I may appreciate it for what it is, but I don't know. I'm curious to see what I think about this. But it's what's insane to me is that it's smashing all these numbers. Like
yeah
I get it back in the theaters. But you said, this isn't a movie you'd actually watch with people, and this thing is getting like big numbers, and they're putting it back in theaters and all this other stuff. Like it's wild that something like this is getting like that much play.
I think it's kind of like a dare movie, though. It's like, oh, everybody has to go and like see, you know, because there's all this hype about it's making people throw up and pass out in the theaters and this stuff. It's like The Exorcist again. People are just going in to like see if they can make it through the movie, and you know, it's that type of film. So younger audiences are just going to gravitate towards something like that.
Phantasm Matt asks, do you have to see the first one to see this? I would say probably not.
No, it has nothing really to do. Well, it's a little bit to do, but like they catch you up with the backstory in the very beginning of the film, so it doesn't really. You don't really.
So yeah, I pre-ordered the Steelbook from Walmart or whatever, so I'm just gonna wait and get that, and then I'll finally check it out. But it's just crazy that it's getting that much hype behind it. Now, did you see Barbarian? Because that's the other one that everybody's talking about, and I haven't watched it yet.
There's two that I'm gonna see before the end of this year that I haven't seen. So I can like do like, you know, a review show around December, January. And that's Pearl and Barbarian. So once I see those, I think I'll be pretty much caught up.
I mean, we should definitely do an end of year horror thing because, man, I'll be honest, like 2022 it was packed when it came to horror. Like,
yeah,
and good stuff too. It was slammed with it, which is just really good to see for the genre because there's a lot of good stuff that came out of this year, which is very, very nice to see.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are popping in now, and
what the hell? I forgot all about this actually until he brought this up. This wouldn't be a bad idea. Bring back the Pity Awards.
Did you guys do that? I don't remember that.
The Pities, they were like our end of the year awards. Like we would have like for best film, best like gore scene, best whatever. It was like the Oscars that we used to do back in the day. That would be an interesting idea to bring that back.
Yeah, guys, let us know in the comments what you think. And I know a lot of people say that the Bravo thing would be a good companion piece to this. That's cool, guys. We can go back and check that thing out because I'm sure that people might be interested that maybe hadn't seen it back then, or maybe you're like, you know what, I'd like a nice refresher because it kind of was it's been dead for a while. So definitely down for that. And again, what's funny is whenever that one came out, which was probably, I don't know, what was it 06? The Bravo? Do you remember?
That sounds right. 06 sounds like it. That was, yeah.
It wasn't a lot of like, we're good people. So I'm curious to see what was put in that list, back then. Because they weren't really watching what they were doing at that point,
With the intent to be like, we don't really like this, but
yeah, they're not gonna do that. I mean, Sleepaway Camp's probably gonna be on there, like that end scene, it was great. Like that's gonna be there. Like they'll mess with it. Hills Have Eyes will probably be on the damn thing,
Oh, it just kills me though how like you can't do anything.
2004. So yeah, it'll be interesting just to see how people talk about stuff. And I think that other guy is on that one. Like, the guy that like Wes always used to talk about. He's like, who is this guy? Why is he on all my documentaries? he'll be one of the talking heads.
Wes being in here though, what do you think about the idea of bringing back the Pitties? I had not even thought about that as like a year end kind of thing. Like, what was the best film? What was the worst film? What were the, what were the ones with the best effects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Like, because I completely forgot that we even did that for a period of time.
I'm sure he'll be down with it. I don't know how much work went into it, but
there's not a lot of work in anything we did. There's not a lot of thought into yeah.
But yeah, guys, thanks again so much. Yeah, he said that he's down for it. This has been a great time, Uncle Bill. Thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, man, it's been like I can't believe it's been 2 months that we've been doing this, but yeah, it was one of my favorite things just because like I love those type of shows, and I'm hoping that we can do something else like it soon.
I'm definitely down, but I will see you tomorrow. So guys, again, make sure to sub to both channels, like this stream. If you're watching on the replay, post in the comments down below on some of the stuff we talked about tonight. Let us know what you liked of the series. And don't forget, tomorrow night, we are back with the cool Halloween 3 retrospective episode. So guys, tune back in tomorrow and we will see you there. And I will see you there as well. And like always, stay rad.
And stay dead.
Give us the thumbs up.
Up your butts.
Like, subscribe. And if you subscribe, here's something else you can do. Once you subscribe, you can click the bell notification, right? And it'll notify you anytime that Dead Pit puts up new shit.
Or don't. I really don't give a if you do.
I want you to. I want you to.
I don't care.
Let's keep our community growing here on YouTube.
I don't like it. I don't want you to do nothing.
Listen, they need to do that now.
No, don't you dare touch it.
Thumbs up. Subscribe. And click that bell.
Hey everyone, it's your old buddy O'Curly Jones, and I'm here to talk about Dead Pit over at TeamPublic.com. They got some new fucking shirts out for you. You got the Dead Pit Radio, it's time to get spooky. You got the Rad Season, the Rad Pack. Halloween Havoc, can't go wrong with that. And some other great shirts like November 1st. You got Pit at Night and Born to be Rad, spooky. It just keeps getting fucking better and better, boys. Uncle Rad. Now go on over and get these shirts now, because they're only there for a limited time, especially the spooky ones. So get them while they're hot. Right now, over at TeamPublic.com. Do it now. I'm gonna beat your ass.
Thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. Dead Pit on Patreon.com is the only place to check out a complete archive of the old Dead Pit radio shows all the way back from 2005 on, in addition to the midweek shows and fan commentaries, exclusive podcasts, and much more. Dead Pit on Patreon.com if you're interested. Tiers start at only $1.